Hello, welcome back, Shire fam. I am David Shire, as you know, a big lover of reality television, and today we're covering episode 2 of Big Brother, starting with Frenchie's HOH reign. I got a lot of notes just right here on the floor because I threw them down because I have no idea what is going on in this house. All right, so we're gonna run through Frenchie's decision, Frenchie's insistence that he was never gonna nominate a person of color or a woman, and how we ended up getting from that being point A to point B being putting up Kyland and Alyssa. And we're going to run through it. We're going to give a little bit of live feed spoilers, and we're just kind of give an overall review of what the episode was. All right, so starting off here, I love that intro. I thought the intro for this episode was actually pretty great. Big Brother doesn't always nail this when they do the whole opening montage, and you see the people doing like little spins and turns and whatever weird thing that they decide to do, like rubbing their hands together or throwing a deck of cards or whatever. And this year I thought it was pretty good. They didn't do that really weird dumb thing that they did in Big Brother 20 where they added on extra seconds to the song, making it like slightly overly long, which I really appreciated. So we're gonna give Big Brother a lot of props for that, for no particular reason at all, other than I just wrote it down in my notes. With Frenchie, the first thing I noticed about Frenchie is in his first sound clip, it seemed like they wanted to play every single song imaginable, right? They wanted to play every single sound clip that they could in the first 5 seconds of Frenchie, because they knew that Frenchie was going to be really liked pretty early on, but that quickly goes away. And the edit, I think, kind of knew that. So they decided to play all the ridiculous sound effects, and they just would not stop playing these sound effects. Like everything Frenchie did had like a little zoing or a little boink and like all these weird things, and it was just very noticeable and very distracting, and it very much kind of summarized Frenchie's play this week, because Frenchie played like a weird sort of Twitter cartoon character of a Big Brother player. He was wild, and from the first moments in this episode when everybody's doing their introductions, like every single time it cut back to Frenchie, his eyes were just so wide and bulgy like a big old cartoon character, and it was very fun to watch Frenchie just kind of tailspin as this week progressed. And so other things to note pretty early on here is that a little bit of poor Travis in the first opening moments. I thought that Travis's whole package about being like, oh man, like I'm a surfer bro and I didn't even get picked, and I feel like, you know, the last kid is like, okay, well, whatever, poor Travis kind of deal. Also, Sarah Beth lying about her occupation, saying that she was a voice actress and then turning out to be a forensic scientist, I thought was kind of weird. I think that if you're somebody like Sarah Beth, just coming out and saying that you're a scientist is actually kind of a cool thing. It gives people a little bit more respect for you coming out the gate and thinking that you're smarter and maybe are a potential somebody for an alliance. So I'm not sure why she's hiding that information. And it was just kind of odd. Another thing that really stood out was Xavier's edit, where he was talking about all the beautiful, beautiful women, and we get this every single season, where the one single guy is like, oh man, these beautiful women. But Xavier, I thought was a little bit was interesting because it was a little bit different. The fact that he really is like conscious of the showmances, and the fact that he doesn't want that a part of his strategy, and the fact that he was shooting it down seemed pretty real. But then again, I mean, you get bored in the Big Brother house, and the only note I had right here was Xavier, no, do not get into showmance, please do not, because as the episode progressed, became clear to me that the producers really like Xavier, and I really like Xavier. Anytime that a segment was focused on him, I thought he did a really good job of just being really well liked. I thought he was really hilarious in the have not room when he was like sucking on his thumb. He's doing a really good job, I think, diminishing his threat with humor right now, and we'll talk about him a little bit more as we kind of go into the live feed section of this show, because I think he's doing a lot in this house, and he has avoided a lot of the chaos in the house this week. So I think Xavier is somebody to watch, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do. And honestly, a lot of these people are really exciting to watch. So far, nobody really stands out as somebody that's not there to play the game. Hannah really came out strong with her aggression and her quotes of saying like, "Look, I don't want to play this wild card competition." Derek F seemed really excited to play the game. Derek X seemed really excited to play the game, and I'm going to be referring to him as DX as we continue on the story. And just everybody seemed really, really invested in the game, and that's really exciting to see, because usually there's like one or two people that you can tell are not really here for the game. I think the closest, weirdly, was Xavier, because they always have that package with the single people being like, "Oh man, I'm already falling in love." But Xavier kind of did that, but kind of didn't, and that's really exciting as the season progresses, especially after last season with being such a snooze fest. I think that these house guests are really here to play the game, and I'm really excited to see what they're able to do. And there's already been a little bit of exciting gameplay, as we saw in one of the first segments. Frenchie is really out to get some of these meatheads, and he really wants to target Brent very early on, Brent Champagne. And what does Brent do? He gets up there and he basically completely flips Frenchie. They talk about their families. Brent talks about his father's suicide, which is really a really good emotional hook for Frenchie, and it really ultimately flips Frenchie into Brent's favor. I found it really funnily edited. Not to say that Brent's situation was funny, but the fact that Frenchie was so gung-ho, and it took this one conversation for Brent to completely flip Frenchie, really goes to show what kind of game Frenchie is playing and continues to play as the episode progresses. And I thought Brent was really good here in this spot, and he might be somebody to look out for. I think he might be a little bit, I don't know. There's some, like, his confessional really kind of irked me. The fact that he was like, "Oh man, like, people here, I hate it. Like, people here just always assume I'm some sort of meathead and I'm an idiot." And I'm like, "Oh, poor you, Brett. Poor you. Like, people don't look at me and are like, 'Oh yeah, look at David. He looks all muscular. I mean, handsome. Like, oh, he must be such a dummy.'" It's like, no, like, come on, dude. Like, it was total ridiculous. It was total world's smallest violin for Brent. But I will admit that he did a really great job here, and I really liked what he was able to do with Frenchie and what he kind of continues to do with Frenchie throughout the week. Other things to note. Basically, Frenchie, I think, then decides to go after Christian. And this is also a pretty important thing, is we learn a little bit more about the wildcard competition. We see that each team has the ability to nominate somebody to play the wildcard competition. And what's really interesting, what we find out after Christian wins, spoiler, is that we find out that Christian has the ability to save more people on his team. So actually picking a strong competitor to play in the wildcard is actually really beneficial to the team, and having those strong competitors to play in the wildcard competition. And so we're definitely seeing a really big push for this team play. I don't know how well it's going to be executed throughout the weeks, but I think it will kind of unify the team a little bit more, hopefully, and we can see some interesting uses of the wildcard comp. We see that Christian was able to win and basically just wipe the floor with against Hannah and against Kyland. And in this competition, we see Kyland's his only confessional that even hints that Kyland is potentially a target for Frenchie. His one confessional. And basically he's saying, like, "Look, I kind of want to win this competition. You never know." It's the only bit of information we get from Kyland, and any hint that he has a chance to even go on the block, and it's very, very subtle. Once Christian wins that competition, we see that that Frenchie is clearly freaking out, saying that his HOH is completely ruined because Christian won this competition. And to be fair to Frenchie, I think he would have gone through and just nominated Christian and Travis given the opportunity. But, you know, needless to say, you got to be careful with what you say in the house. The fact that he's told all these women that he was not going to nominate them really limited Frenchie's options. And when your first week HOH, you're really trying to build those strong bonds. And if I was Frenchie, I would have done either one of two things. I would have really, number one, or one of my plans would have been to get my team together, really solidify my team bonds, and then kind of make everybody else desperate. Maybe like take the first couple hours of the game just being like, all right guys, I'm going to stay in the HOH room for a couple hours. You guys mingle as I kind of ruminate and think about things and just kind of get the rest of the house to be a little bit scared. That way when they come up and offer me something, they're a little bit more desperate. Or I just would have, you know, talked to everybody, not said anything, not said, hey, I'm not going to nominate any women, which eliminates half of the house. And also Frenchie underreported said that he wasn't going to nominate any people of color, which eliminates even more of the house, basically leaving only 3 other men, and just getting yourself in this weird bind week 1. Again, Frenchie, I think this episode really shows like almost a complete Big Brother arc for most characters. Frenchie went from this little plucky underdog hero to maybe the biggest villain of the season by the end of it. In the course of an hour, it took an hour. It took Frenchie, like, I believe 3 days. 3 days to completely lose his mind and completely lie to the entire house. That is not a good sign for the first week HOH, and I cannot be even more excited about it. The fact that Frenchie is setting this precedent as HOH to go completely crazy, I think we're in a real treat for the season. There were some developments that were happening and that we'll go ahead and get into. But overall, I think this was a great first episode. I think the fact that Frenchie's nomination speech, let's talk about that for a quick second. I love Frenchie's nomination speech. It was just total nonsense. It kind of reminded me a little bit of, who was it? Cowboy from Survivor Cook Islands, where he basically just said, guys, I had a dream, and my dream was that I had a big fish, and that fish, I couldn't catch it, so I needed to get some bait. And Kylan, that's why you're nominated. Just what? Dude, Frenchie, this is day 3. You gotta calm down a little bit. You can't be doing these weird analogies. Your job as first HOH is to solidify an alliance. And we didn't even get that. We didn't get any alliance talk about Frenchie. The show didn't even bother saying what Frenchie was trying to do with that end, because every time Frenchie said something, it just kind of, it was weird and sad and just, I don't know. It was so excellent that Big Brother just didn't even decide to save Frenchie in the edit. It was a total train wreck. If you were on BB Twitter, you knew it was a train wreck, and watching the episode, it was correctly portrayed as a train wreck, and I absolutely am in love. So that's it, basically, for the episode. I had a dream that this was the ending of the episode, and this is the start of the Big Brother season, and unfortunately, it's real for Frenchie. And so, overall, great start. Let's get into a little bit of live feed spoilers. So, if you are not listening to live feeds and don't want to be spoiled on that, this would be the end of the video. Go ahead and hit a like and subscribe. Tell me what you think about Frenchie's HOH week. Tell me the one thing that you would do better than Frenchie. Honestly, if you just typed in the bottom comments section, you said, Frenchie should have just stayed quiet this entire week, you know, that would have been a lot better than what Frenchie did, because honestly, he's gotten himself into a lot of trouble. All right, now I'm going to wait 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so you're all gone. Anybody that's still here, you are subjugated to the live feeds. But basically, I think the one thing the episode didn't cover that was a really big piece missing from this puzzle was the fact that Derek X was actually in a lot of trouble this week. And what ended up happening was that Derek was a little bit worried about Frenchie. He was a little bit worried that he heard that Frenchie had told the women that they were all safe. And so in an effort to kind of save himself, Derek ended up trying to make some alliances, and also ended up throwing Brent's name out there as a potential target. And Frenchie, somewhere along the way, convinced himself that it was Derek X's idea to target Brent, and Derek X kind of got all the blame for everything that went wrong for Frenchie this week. And if that sounds completely insane to you, like, you're the most sane person out there, because that is, yeah, like it was, I can't, like, my brain is trying so hard to comprehend everything that's happened in like the span of like 4 days with Frenchie, that like the gears, like it feels like that scene in WandaVision where Vision eats the bubblegum and the gears are just like stuck in place and it just can't move. And that's where my brain is at. Just imagine like little cartoons and little gears not shifting, because that is the kind of logic. That's what Frenchie has done to me this week. And I demand once Frenchie gets out of the house just to apologize to me personally and to all of BB Twitter for driving them insane. It is wild. Derek X didn't really do anything all that wrong. He kind of made a game move to try to get rid of Brent, because Frenchie basically said, there's only 3 people I can nominate. One of them was Travis, who Derek X underreportedly was really close to, so he kind of wanted to put the target on Brent. Brent found out about this later and made Derek X feel guilty, and so the plan going into this next week and to this week was to win the power of veto, either take off Xavier or Kylan, and then backdoor Derek X. And what ends up happening is that Derek X does get picked for the veto, and Derek X wins the power of veto, thus saving himself. And now the plan, as it currently stands, and again, anything can change at any given moment in the Big Brother house. I was looking through the feeds, and I'm actually still not sure what's going to happen. But as I understand what I've seen in the last 24 hours, it seems like the plan now is for Derek X to use the power of veto on Kylan, because those two had bonded throughout the week, and then for Frenchie to backdoor Travis. That is the current plan as it stands right now, and I do believe that Travis has the votes to be evicted. I think Xavier and Alyssa have been getting pretty close. Alyssa also has been getting close to Derek X in these last couple of days, and she's actually playing a pretty good social game. And ultimately, nobody's really batting for Travis. The only person that was Derek X. But since Derek X is already kind of ostracized from the house, which is unfortunate given that, you know, he is the guy who stole my spot in the Big Brother house. Though I'm really rooting for Derek X. I would really hate it if Derek X were to go early, because I think that I just want Asians to succeed in these shows. But so Derek X winning the VO was a really big deal for me, because I was like really excited when, especially because he was really being ostracized by Brent, by Frenchie, to an extent Christian, from what I understand. That one might be a little bit false. I would double check that one, but definitely Brent and Frenchie were kind of excluding him, which made me feel bad, because I'm like thinking, like, if I ever got in the house, like, what would that happen to me? But, you know, Derek X wins that POV. Looks like Travis is potentially going out. So weirdly enough, it's like the Lion King, you know? It's the circle of life. Frenchie said, hey, I'm going to get rid of a meathead. And, you know, and Travis might go home. And which would be kind of unfortunate. I think Travis, a lot of the conversation is that Travis would have been good for Derek X's game. But ultimately, and Derek X probably doesn't have too long in the house. But ultimately, you got to cut ties. You got to, I think DX has to kind of do what the house says. I think him taking Kylan off the block could potentially form a bond, and I'm really rooting for that. I'm not super hopeful, but I'm rooting for it. Overall, I would say that the people who are probably playing the best game in the house right now, from my point of view, is probably Xavier. I think he has a lot of good inroads. The funny thing I wanted to mention about Xavier is the fact that Xavier, too, is also lying about his occupation. He is a lawyer in real life, and he's been telling the house guests that he is a bartender. And what's really funny about Xavier and his lie is he's telling people that he's a bartender, but as he gets closer to these people throughout the week, he starts telling them, okay, yeah, I'm a bartender, but like I have a little secret. It's kind of embarrassing, but I do a little bit of modeling on the side. And by doing this and saying, not making a big deal out of it like Jeremy and Kagayan, Survivor Kagayan, by doing this, he's actually really doing a great job at hiding his occupation, because he's basically created a fake occupation, and then he created a fake, real-ish occupation that's also fake. So for the players to figure out that he's lying about his job, they'd have to make the assumption that not only did he lie about his job, but he lied about the modeling a lie about the job. And I think Xavier is a really fun player, and I was having a real blast watching him on the show, hearing his internal monologue and thoughts. So I think he's somebody to watch. I also think that Claire, Azza, Brittany, and Tiffany have already formed a women's alliance. I think that's a really interesting thing to watch out for as well. There are some other alliances going out there. Personally, I'm not too much of a live feed watcher. I'm not going to claim to be. But I do listen to RHAP. Rob has a podcast. Taryn Armstrong does a really great live feed analysis that I recommend everybody listen to if they really want all the episodes spoiled for them. And so with that being said, this is shaping up to be a really great season of Big Brother. It is something that baby US fans have needed for a really long time, and I'm really excited to see what goes on. And I hope that you have a good rest of the day. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'll be looking in the comments after this video. Otherwise, have a good rest of the night. And as Julie Chen once said, you gotta be nice in order to play. I don't know. I can't think of a Julie Chen sign off. Anyway, have a good rest of the night. Bye.